Hope everyone's doing well. It's been a hot minute since I've actually been on YouTube, but I thought today would be a great day to do it. There's a lot of things going on in the world, and I don't think that we have the capacity in our memories to think and remember everything that has happened because, as Steve Bannon said, he was going to flood the zone with information, flood the zone with chaos, flood the zone with misinformation, disinformation, AI prompts, AI pictures, videos where you don't even know how to make sense, heads or tails out of anything. And you begin to think like, where am I living? What is happening? Could this all be true? Well, I did some digging, and I've been going through this for a hot while, right? So I put it together kind of in a script so that I could read to everyone. And forgive me if these names don't come out simply because they're not in my culture or my language, either in English or Spanish. So they may come out a little chopped out, but please bear with me. Okay, so let's talk about U.S. military and conflicts under President Donald Trump. Right? If I remember correctly, he has been the president who has campaigned under there would be no wars, there would be no conflicts, everything would be perfect, right? Well, the fact of the matter is that he hasn't really kept up with his ideology, his word, his ethics, his principle. Or maybe his principle is hate, division, and conflict. I could be wrong. I've been wrong about a lot of things, but this is where we're at today. So here goes. Um, Back during his campaign, Donald J. Trump campaigned twice on a promise most Americans had not heard from a major party candidate in decades: the promise to end America's endless wars. He called prior military adventures wasteful, costly, and mismanaged. He promised to bring the troops home. What followed across 2 terms in office was something far more complex than either of his supporters or critics anticipated. Not a ground war in traditional sense, not a formal declaration of conflict, but a sustained, far reaching use of American military force, targeted, rapid, and often without prior notice to Congress or the public. So, back in 2017 was when he first started this whole rhetoric. Hi, Sylvia, how are you? So, April 2017, CNN breaking news from Crowns, the U.S. Navy destroyer in the Mediterranean. The night of April 6th in 2017, just 77 days into his first term, President Trump ordered to launch 59 Tomahawk cruise missiles from the U.S. Navy destroyer to the Mediterranean Sea. The target, Sakirat, an airbase in Syria controlled by President Bashar. So, if we think that this is new, what he's doing, he started 77 days into his first term. The stated justification: a chemical weapon attack on Syrian civilians 4 days earlier from Khan that killed dozens of men, women, and children. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Thank you. Um, and then his statement was the following: it is a viral national security interest of the United States to prevent and deter the spread and use of daily chemical weapons. The strike was carried out without any United Nations Security Council authorization, without a formal vote of Congress. The U.S. military notified Russia in advance to minimize the risk of Russian casualties at the base. Assad's government remained intact. Within hours of the American strikes, Syria aircrafts were conducting new raids from the same air bases. The following year, Assad used chemical weapons again. So this is kind of something that happens, right? It's normal for our president to do something like this. These are not lies, Ken. This comes from actual articles. I'm not fabricating anything. This is something that is coming directly from different journalists. And he did campaign on the fact that there would be no wars, that he would be bringing back home the troops, that there would be no troops on foreign land. Yet here we are. Here we are again at the same point. So you could stay in delusional land. That's okay. Everyone has the right to think what they want to. And sometimes when we need to protect our own mental health, we decide to think it's not happening. So you're fine. No problem. Keep living there. You'll be fine. Counter ISIS operations, Iraq and Syria, 2017 to 2019. This is what happened. The Trump administration intensified the campaign against Islamic State ISIS across Iraq, Syria. Troop loosened battlefield rules of engagement inherited from the Obama administration, giving military commanders greater autonomy. Airstrikes increased. So did reported civilian casualties. Yes, it did. Yes, it did. The territorial catastrophic of ISIS was declared defeated. But in March of 2019, the organization survived as dispersed insurgency and the US military engagement continued. Yes, it did. It continued. So that's where we are. This is where we're at today. And we still want to be living under a rock. January 3rd of 2020 at the Baghdad International Airport. Does everyone remember this? Everyone was up in arms about this particular incident. When people were handing over their babies over a fence, when people were hanging from that airplane, everyone was in shock. Oh my God, how can we do that? That is so inhumane. But here goes March 3rd of 2020, in the early hours in the morning, an MQ-9 Reaper drone tracked a convoy leaving Baghdad International Airport. Inside was General Qassam, commander of Iran's elite Quds force and one of the most powerful military figures in the Middle East. The drone fired. Soleimani was killed along Abdul, a senior leader in Iraqi militia forces. Iran's state mourning, massive street protests in Tehran, flags burning. The Trump administration cited intelligence indicating Soleimani was plotting imminent attacks against the American personnel and embassies. Congress, including members of the president's own party, said they had not been fully briefed before the strike. Wow, what a shocker. They weren't briefed. No Congress saying that it was okay for them to go to war. Not at all, right? It's just a matter of I'm going to do whatever the hell I want. Yeah, that's basically what happened. So, Iran's supreme leader, the Ayatollah, vowed harsh revenge days later. Iran launched over a dozen ballistic missiles at the US military bases in Iraq. Over 100 American service members were diagnosed with traumatic brain injuries from the blasts. From the blasts. Iraq's parliament voted to expel American troops from the country. Yep, they sure did. The president, our president, said, "We did not take action to start a war." What? We did not take action to start a war? What is that? Legal scholars debated whether the strike constituted the act of war. The Council of Foreign Relations noted it and was first known instance was the United States killing senior military officials of a foreign government via drone strike. Yes, it was. So sad that we are so lost. Well, here goes again. Yemen, Saudi airstrikes, starving children, U.S. weapons, marking on debris. Throughout his first term, Trump also continued to expand U.S. material support of Saudi led military campaigns in Yemen, a devastating conflict that produced what the United States described as one of the world's worst humanitarian crises. Yep. Congress passed legislation twice to end the U.S. involvement. Trump vetoed both measures. How do you like that? You're president of no wars. You're president of let's bring the troops home. Your president who campaigned as wasteful money is out there spending our money like if there was no tomorrow. Damn it. October 2019. The map of northeast Syria. Troops withdrawn. In October of 2019, Trump announced a sudden withdrawal of U.S. forces from the northeast Syria, effectively clearing the path for Turkish military offensive against the Kurds, America's primary partner in the fight against ISIS. Whoosh, allies had fought alongside U.S. troops for years, found themselves exposed almost overnight. The decision was condemned by Republicans and Democrat members of the Congress alike. The Defense Secretary James Mattis had already resigned a year prior. The part of the disagreement about troops withdrawal from Syria and Afghanistan. If you don't see the pattern here, well, I don't know what we're going to see. Then we're really lost. And these foreign countries will eventually strike in our homeland. So pay attention. January 20th, 2025, inauguration, military parade, footage of the Pentagon briefings. That's what happened. Donald Trump returned to the White House in January 2025 within months of the pace of U.S. military operations abroad accelerated sharply. According to the data complied by the Armed Conflict Location and Event Data Project, a nonprofit that monitors armed conflicts worldwide, the Trump administration oversaw at least 626 airstrikes in 2025 alone. His predecessor, President Joe Biden, ordered a total of 555 strikes across his entire 4 year term. 4 year term. The United States was striking in more places more often than any point in recent memory. Do you think this man wants to take you into World War III or World War I? Or how about Pearl Harbor when they hit your homeland? In March of 2025, Houthi controlled Yemen. U.S. aircraft carried in the Red Sea. In March 2025, the Trump administration launched an extensive air campaign against the Houthi rebels forces in Yemen. The Houthis had been attacking commercial ships in the Red Sea in response to the ongoing war in Gaza. By all means, a ceasefire broken in January 2025 had already led the Houthis to pause their attacks on shipping. Trump ordered the strikes anyway. The campaign involved cruise missiles, B-2s, stealther bombers, and naval assets. The cost surpassed $1 billion within the first month. A Human Rights Watch report documented that a U.S. strike on Ras Issa port in April of 2025 killed more than 80 civilians. The organization said the strike should be investigated as potential war crimes. A ceasefire broken by Oman was reached in March 2025, and the Houthis announced they would resume attacks in conditions if the conditions did not change. Do you see a pattern yet? Do you see a pattern yet? Caribbean Sea military vessels and small boats on open waters. Does this sound like Venezuela to you? Beginning September of 2025, Trump administration launched what is described a counter narcotics campaign in the Caribbean Sea. The Eastern Pacific Ocean, striking boats the military identified as drug trafficking vessels. At least 106 people were killed in these strikes. Legal experts questioned the authority under which the operation was conducted. Polling showed that 53% of Americans opposed the boat strikes. In one documented instance, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth ordered strikes on survivors clinging to a shipwrecked vessel. These were people like you and I who were asking for mercy. The campaign stated purposely shifted over time from counter narcotics to pressuring Venezuela's government for Nicolas Maduro to what the president himself framed as an effort to recover Venezuelan oil assets. So, what is it? Drugs? the president or oil. So, what will it be with Iran? Christians, oil, or the Ayatollah? Who is it? Which one of them do they want? We continue on with Venezuela because it's part of it, right? So, January 3rd of 2026, Trump announced that the US forces had conducted a military operation inside Venezuela, extracting President Nicolas Maduro and his wife from a capital, Caracas. The operation was cumulative of months of escalating pressure, covert CIA actions, and military buildup. At a press conference, Trump shifted the stated justification for counter narcotics to what he described as desire to profit from Venezuela's oil industry. The operation had not been formally authorized by Congress. Legal scholars noted it represented one of the most aggressive unilateral executive actions in Latin America in decades. So, another war. Does it sound familiar? Who does he want? Osama bin Laden? Revenge for 9/11? What is he looking for? Somalia. U.S. airstrikes. In Eastern Africa, the administration dramatically escalated military operations in Somalia. The New American Foundation found that the U.S. carried out at least 111 strikes in Somalia in 2025, a massive increase over prior years, targeting ISIS affiliates. I hope that one day you have the curiosity to come back and look at this video and count. Count with your own fingers how many of these attacks have been brought in by our current president, who said he was the president of no wars. No wars. Nigeria, Christmas Day 2025. Tomahawk missiles launched from the Gulf of Guinea. Damn, this man doesn't even respect a holy day. And he calls himself a Christian man? How could that even be possible? A Christmas Day 2025, Trump announced that the U.S. Navy vessel was launched more than a dozen Tomahawk cruise missiles at targets in the northwestern Nigeria in the Sokoto state, targeting what the administration describes as ISIS affiliates responsible for violence against Christian communities. The strikes were coordinated with Nigeria government. Nigeria officials dispute the characterization of the targets, noting that ISIS was not known to operate in the region that was struck. Questions emerged about whether intended targets were actually identified. See, this man doesn't care. He doesn't care about you, about me. He cares about his bottom line, his pocket. Iran, June of 2025, B 2 bombers on a runway, nuclear facility imaginary, right? Most consequential military action in Trump's second term came against Iran. Diplomatic negotiations between the US and Iran were still underway. The Trump administration, in coordination with Israel, always Israel, launched a series of strikes targeting Iran's nuclear infrastructure. In June of 2025, Operation Midnight Hammer deployed 7 B 2 stealth bombers from Whitman Air Force Base in Missouri. The aircraft dropped 30,000 pounds bunker buster bombs on a deeply buried nuclear facility in Fordo and Natas. Trump declared the operation and obliterated nuclear capacities for Iran. Wow, isn't that awesome? By early 2026, the US and Israel had launched a second, broader campaign against Iran. According to the Iranian Red Crescent, the joint attacks killed at least 201 people. Trump described the operations as a major combat operation aimed, he said, at the regime change of Tehran. The strikes took place with diplomatic talks between Iran and the United States were ongoing. Do you see a pattern? How many people have to die? Do you not care about your fellow human beings across the world? What happened to y'all? What happened to all of you? Didn't you grow up with the imagination of being friends with the entire world and children and playing everywhere? So you grew up and became bitter ass old people? So sad. Trump at rallies saying, "No more endless wars." Again, no more endless wars. Trump's record on military forces defies easy categorization. He did not launch a large scale ground invasion in a manner of Iraq or Afghanistan. He withdrew troops from theaters. He broken seas agreements and conflicts where the United States was not itself a combatant. But in conflict where the US military was directly involved, the record shows consistency, escalation, more strikes, more theater, more unilateral action, less congressional consulting. Yep. The critics across political spectrum raised the same constitutional concerns throughout both terms. The power of to declare war belongs to Congress, not the president. Former Representative Justin Amash stated plainly that offensively military actions require congressional approval, and the decision of whether to engage in conflict across the globe belongs to the people's representatives, not to the executive alone. Trump's administration, like administrations before, bypassed those constraints, but the scale and geographical scope of the operations under Trump's second term pushed those limits further than most analysts had anticipated. The human cost of decisions extend across multiple continents. America's service members killed and wounded, civilians in Yemen, Syria, Somalia, Nigeria, Iraq, who were not combatant, diplomatic relationships strained or severed, regional instability. History will assess whether actions made by the United States were more secure, less secure, or something more ambitious. Either way, what the record shows without dispute is this: in both of his terms, Donald J. Trump, American military force he used frequently globally at his own authority. So, the affair of other countries are the concern only of the activities directly threatened our interest. Trump administration 2025 national security. And at this point, we have 9 and counting wars. And if we count his invasion or his boots on the ground in Ecuador, we have 10. So, again, Trump supporters, this is your president that you voted for because he wasn't going to have any wars on foreign lands and the endless um, sending off of our boys off to another country was going to end. Yet we are still here hearing mothers cry for their children, children worried in their own self, care to see if they will be coming back. Is this what you voted for? Endless wars? Oh, wait, your gas just went up. I bet you that's more important than the loss of life that will be experienced. And if you think that we're going into Iran as quickly as he did it last time when he came out and it was done and over with, we are absolutely wrong. There is mass casualties that are not being reported to us. And I suggest that you look into reporting from Al Jazeera and any other newspaper or journalist outlet that comes from Europe or Asia, other countries, because we are heavily censored now. And with that, I'm going to say goodbye because I came in to give you this story to let you know what has happened. 9 wars and counting from a president who said, "No more waste and fraud and countless wars with our troops overseas." Get it together, America, because they're coming for us next. Thank you.